Mina Mani. We've got a few Kaurna people out there, so it's wonderful that you can say hello. And as you would know, the literal words is that you're all fat. And fatness was great because fatness meant wellness, and we know wellness is very important, particularly at this time. Twila Maniputnik! Twila Wakanapadnik! Nai Kaurna Biako Makalankala, Marawachanga Kaurna Mianam. Minyana na mani putaji, nai nari kamatpi marriage, nai wangadi mani putni, gani yatana, irindi yata, Tandanya, Wadley, Tandenga, irindi yata, Madlunga, welcome. Welcome to the lands of the Kaurna people. Today we come to the spirit place of the Red Kangaroo being Adelaide, but also Tandanya being the Red Kangaroo place. It is wonderful that we can welcome you and call upon the spirit people of our ancestors to bring goodness upon you, to send away that sadness that sometimes lingers. A welcome is saying, are you well? And I hope you are. But it's also saying, where have we been and what have we been doing? Because our face tells us where we've been, but our heart tells us where to go. What does that mean? Well, we collect knowledge and wisdom, and therefore, when we collect knowledge and wisdom, we connect it to our heart so that we can do it for good. My name is Mickey O'Brien. I'm a descendant of the Kaurna people. It is my pleasure not only to welcome, because you are the important people when you come to a place. And it's important that I tell you that my family is Uncle Lewis O'Brien, a Kaurna elder known as the Old Man of the Sea, and my mother is a Narunga elder from the York Peninsula, Auntie Pauline O'Brien. But today it's also about these beautiful people behind me, Nancy and Warwick, and today it's not just welcoming them, it's welcoming them to this place as well and to have this conversation with you. And so I'm going to call them up because I want to share in a leaf ceremony with them because knowledge and wisdom is very important. So if Nancy and Warwick can come up, I'm going to get them to take a leaf from my shield here. Nancy, if you take a leaf, choose wisely. Add a leaf, just one. We don't want all the knowledge, we've got to share. That's it, and Warwick?
I'm a greedy one.
Take the bush. And I'll take one as well. And so I'm going to exchange with you first, Nancy, one of those leaves, and then with you, Warwick.
Thank you.
And we can say these words, Nara Nadlu Kamanka Yarakumanindi, which means today we give, we receive, but together we become one, because the land is the oldest thing in the world. It's been here before us, will continue to be after us. Our people saw the importance of the land and it looking after us. So we're taking the knowledge and the wisdom of the land, but our DNA enables us to put our knowledge and wisdom upon the land, on the leaf, and therefore we can exchange it because no one person holds the knowledge and wisdom. A welcome is saying that we want to share knowledge and wisdom. We want to grow ourselves, just like today in growing your knowledge and wisdom about their knowledge of, obviously, filmmaking. And so this is a reminder of us. It's also the connection that the land has with them, and therefore will look after them wherever they go whilst they're on this land. So I'd like to thank them for coming and sharing their knowledge and wisdom, and to keep them safe, not only from our spirit people of our ancestors, but by the connection, because our people believe that we always see each other, not just in the physical, but the spiritual, because we never say goodbye. We always say, see you later, being nakara. So I leave you these words. My unjiga, my anjiga, nachukandaya, nachiyakandaya, padniandu. It's saying we are all brothers and sisters. We walk the land together, we listen, we observe. When we do so, we realise culture brings us together, never separates us. And so I say nakara, neichaya, and I look forward to seeing you all, and also to our audience as well who have come today. So thank you, and nakara, and enjoy.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again to Michael and to the Kaurna people. My name's Nancy Guevara, and I'm feeling really privileged because I've not had an official Kaurna welcome since I came to Kaurna country last year in the middle of COVID in March. It was a bit hard to meet everybody, and I haven't been out too much, but I'm glad things are opening up now. I want to welcome you all And thank you all for attending today, the last day of NAIDOC, a conversation with Warwick Thornton here, hosted by the South Australian Film Commission, and in particular the Indigenous Development Unit with Leanne Buxton and Nara Wilson there. Thanks for having us. I'm a Miriam person, I'm from Queensland, and so it's, I'm not of this country, and it's really nice to be warmly welcomed like this. I feel really special to be able to do this conversation with Warwick today, who's also from, not from this country either.
Nah.
But we'll find out more about him later, because I have a long list of just housekeeping information for us, because we're in this time here, at this time in the world, we're dealing with something special, I suppose, that we haven't before. The event, of course, is a NAIDOC celebration of the NAIDOC Week 2021, and the theme this year is Heal Country. It's a really, I really am quite happy about this theme, and I'm going to ask Warwick about, Warwick, what does it mean to you about healing country in this NAIDOC year?
Being on country, that's healing country. You've got to be there to heal it in a way. You can dream of it and wish for it, but actually being there, your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors, that's healing country, being with them on land. That's what it is for me. So, and I spend a lot of time away from, I'm from Alice Springs. My family are Kadich from a place called Barra Creek, north of Alice Springs, and I don't spend enough time there. And healing country, in a strange way, is not just country being healed, it's you being healed. So being actually on country is healing you. So I sometimes feel a bit weak and a bit burnt out, and I just don't get home enough to heal myself or to help heal the country.
Yeah, I think I feel in a similar way, in that, you know, healing country is about being connected to it, connected to the country and your family on that country, and
when you spend time on, it's a smell thing as well. Your sweat, the dietary requirements that you have from living in a place that you don't live in originally. So all the spirits can't. The first thing they do is they see you. You've aged, so you've changed. So they're slightly not recognising you properly. But what they're doing is they're sniffing you. They're smelling you. And if you've been eating too many cheeseburgers, you don't smell like you're from that country. You know what I mean? And when you start eating back off country, whether it's bush tucker or whatever, or drinking water from that country, then they smell you and they go, I know who you are. You know, it's an interesting one. It comes with your sweat.
yeah, too true. In my country, which is a Miriam country in the Torres Strait, they say that you need to connect. The more strongly you're connected to the country, the more you become your totem. Mm-hmm. So your totem, and if you act like your totem, then the environment that totem survives in is you should be have the same characteristics of it and take on more of it the more strongly that you're connected.
Yeah, and if you recognise, you can. The country will give you more food in a way. If the spirits recognise you in that country, they will start giving you things that not necessarily it'll give you if you doesn't recognise you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so so we're in NAIDOC Week, which is a great celebration, and I hope you've been to many events that have been held this week, and there's been lots of great television as well to watch with the First Nations filmmakers. I just want to remind you too that under the COVID venue health guidelines, we all have to wear masks when you're sitting in the audience, not us for some reason.
Yeah, no.
I think that's because we're far enough away from everybody and from each other. But we want to make sure that you also know that there's cameras around the events being photographed and it's being filmed for Channel 41.
Channel 44
sorry.
rocks. I've been watching a lot of Channel 44 in the last couple of months being here. I was about to say stuck here, but I'm not stuck here. Yeah. I love this place. I grew up, I came from Alice, the big adventure once every 4 years was to come to Adelaide and see the sea, so, but I've been watching a lot of Channel 44 and it's so awesome. This is kind of, a lot of people are trying to get rid of community television, and so much of so many new filmmakers start off in community television. It's a place where a lot of voices can be heard that would never be heard in bigger TV, bigger studios and television stations. So it's really important that we support community television 100%.
Right. So the images from today's event are going to be on South Australian Film Commission's Facebook page and other social media pages in the coming weeks. We're asking you, though, to refrain from doing any posting today until the South Australian Film Commission goes first. And that's because some of the conversations that we're having with Warwick today aren't yet public, and so we want to hold it for later.
And I talk a lot of shit too, so you catch me out.
Yeah. But you might all know that the reason that Warwick is here in South Australia, here in Kaurna country at the moment, because he's working on his new AMC Studios and Seesaw Films TV series, Fire Bright.
Bite.
Sorry, Fire Bite.
No, you know what? That's happened. That's
quite
happened.
nice.
No, that's happened a lot. It's sort of like, Rach, we may bite bigger than the end. The credit. Bite. Yeah, no, it's happened a fair bit that it's been called Fire Bright. Yeah, yeah. But there's a show out there called Fire Bright. Yeah, a Netflix one. So we need to. I'm not changing the name for no one, but it's something that we've got to consider because that keeps coming up.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's good. No,
but we're really pleased to have you here today because you are in Kaurna country, and also we've got executive producer Rachel Gardner here.
yeah, she's over there.
There she is, and next to her Dina Curtis as well, who's the editor. So
No, Rockstar producers, they are both.
co-producer. And are you doing any editing too, Dina? No,
Nah.
she's moved on. I know her as an editor,
No.
sorry, because I know her from long back.
Well, she's been directing amazing series and writing and producing all sorts of crazy things. It's like
Fantastic.
we need her. Yeah.
We're going to talk more about Fire Bite later. So this series is still in the early days of production, which is why we can't do any tweeting about it today. So you can consider yourself in, like the rules of Fight Club, I like to think of,
Yeah.
The first rule about Fight Club is we don't talk about Fight Club.
What's that tax thing
The first
too?
rule about Fire
Second-
Bite
Yeah.
is we don't talk about Fire Bite.
No, we can talk about it, just can't tell you what it's about, which is a bit, so it's boring conversation, really. Yeah.
So there's going to be time for you to all ask questions at the end of this, of our conversation. And staff are going to be moving down the aisles on both ends. They're going to take these mics, and if you want to ask a question, we're going to ask if you make your way to the end of the row, and then you're able to get as close as possible for them because we can't hand the mics around due to COVID. And we all want to ask you to stay on after the conversation because we're going to have some food. Awesome. And food's important when you're making friends with people, isn't it, Warren?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if it's free.
And you don't have to cook it?
No, I don't have to cook it, yeah.
So Warwick's bio, and I'll read this out because I wouldn't want to get anything wrong here. He's had a long celebrated career in Indigenous media, really. He's one of the pioneers, I would say, and who's blazing trails for lots of us, or blazing tracks, let's say. He's an internationally acclaimed director, writer and cinematographer. Warwick is one of the most celebrated First Nations auteur voices.
What?
Huh?
What?
Too deadly. Known for his powerful and gritty feature films, Warwick has won multiple awards for his work, including the Camera d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival for his debut feature film Samson and Delilah in 2009, and the Special Jury Prize at the Venice Film Festival, as well as the Platform Prize at the Toronto Film Festival for Sweet Country in 2017. He's done much more than that, of course, and we're going to talk about that. Warwick is in South Australia shooting Fire Bite, which he created, wrote and is directing together with longtime collaborator Brendan Fletcher. He isn't able to be with us today because he's in Sydney.
Yeah, poor bugger, he's in lockdown.
Yeah. And that's set to release in the US on AMC Plus later this year. Fire Bite is a high-octane fantasy series that follows two Indigenous Australian hunters, Tyson and Shanika, on their quest to battle the last colony of vampires in the middle of the South Australian desert.
Yeah,
Look out.
they're done.
That sounds fantastic. But, you know, as with most of these lovely long conversations, it's so nice to get to talk to you again, because I've actually worked with Warwick in and out over the years, weaving in and out. And we want to start sort of at the beginning, I suppose, of your career path and journey, and ask you first up, where did it all start?
Started with nepotism from my mother. Her and an amazing man named Johnny McCumber and another amazing man, Philip Batty, started the Central Australian Aboriginal Media Association in Alice, Karma. And it started off as, you know, we just wanted to hear our language on the radio, because we basically just had, we didn't even have ABC, we had ABC and we had one commercial AM channel, and, you know, not a drop of Indigenous language to be heard across the whole of Australia, let alone Central Australia. And so that's where it started, this first little licence that Mum and Philip and Johnny got. And I started it, and then I got a job I started doing a show when I was 11 called Black Kids, just sort of what's happening for kids in Alice Springs and around the communities, you know, what's coming up this month, and played a lot of Coloured Stones, Black Boy, you know, or Coloured Stones albums, and Rumpy and No Fixed Address and Us Mob. And from there they started a little video unit, and when I was 17 I joined the video unit as a trainee. It was back in the days when everyone was a trainee. Every black fella in the whole of Australia was a trainee. Ironically, we were training the trainers, you know what I mean, about how to do things. But it was brilliant, you know what I mean? So, and met a lot of people at Karma, and you know, and we had too much to do to be trainees. There was too many stories to be told, too much information that we had to get out. So it's kind of like you just basically from day one, this is how you switch the camera on. This is a wide shot. This is a close up. Now fuck off and make some documentaries, please. You know what I mean? And it's a brilliant way to learn, because the importance of what you were doing was more important than learning in a strange way. You just had to do it. And so that, you know, and that just opened an incredibly amazing amount of doors for me. And I did that till I was 24, and then I went to AFTRS in Sydney. I did a 3-year course in cinematography. Never ever gave a shit about directing, hated directors, hated the idea of trying to direct. I just wanted to be, you know, a great cinematographer. So, and when I left AFTRS, I kind of, you know, there was no work around. You know, I could probably go to ABC, SBS had just started up with, you know, some, you know, as a cameraman just doing the magazine style programs. But I'd done that for the last, you know, 8 years at Karma, doing that, and I wanted to get into drama, into fiction, into bullshit, you know what I mean? And so, and no, you know, so it was kind of like, you could just basically just slot into doing magazine stuff again after doing 3 years of cinematography. I just didn't want to do it. Because then you could wake up 30 years later and you're still doing the same stuff. And so I started writing films, purely on the basis of wanting to shoot them, and we'll find a director when we find the money. And then Screen Australia was basically, they loved the scripts I was writing, but they said they'll only fund them if I direct them, and it's like, oh shit, you know, I don't do that, that's too hard, directing's hard work. Cinematography's fun. But that's the only way I could get to shoot what I wanted to shoot, was to actually start directing. So that's how the whole nightmare disaster started. That I've had which I have this terrible saying that it's like, if the film turns into a nightmare, I just want to wake up in a bed of cash. You know? So it's been a bit, I tell my agent that all the time. Hey, if the film's a nightmare, just make sure I wake up in a bed of cash. But you know, I've just had such a fortunate journey. Absolutely, I've never been on a film that's been a nightmare, and I've never woke up with a better cash, so it's kind of worked out the other way. And so, but I'm so fortunate and so happy, and I've made a lot of stoic films. I've made a lot of important films that have come from, where this gum leaf is, this, you know what I mean, from my heart. And they've been really empowering, and they've gone around the world, and they've won lots of kind of fucking awards and all that sort of stuff. But at this point in my life, I made so many important films. Samson Delilah, Sweet Country, We Don't Need a Map, you know what I mean, The Beach. And it's kind of about time I just make something really naughty and full of shit, and that's kind of what Firebite is. Even though it has massive foundations in colonisation, you know what I mean, the big backstories, really important stuff that you can read and learn about while watching. I didn't want to make something that's educational. I just wanted to make something that's just dumb and stupid and awesome. You know what I mean, and loud and obnoxious and a lot of BO. You know what I mean. So that's kind of where I am at the moment. I just want to run amok. You know what I mean? I'll go back to making really serious films, but I just want to go and run amok for a couple of years and make stupid things, and hopefully wake up in a better cash. Yeah.
That's a good point that you make about waking up in a better cash, because, well, in the sense that how are we driven to make stories? So have you been driven, even from the start when you look back? Because it's been a long time now,
it wasn't
25
driven.
years.
It wasn't driven. It was drummed into me from my
your parents.
Yeah, from my mum and from Philip and Johnny and a whole lot of other amazing people. Drummed into you, just and you dragged kicking and screaming through those doors to, you've got to tell this story, you've got to do that, you've got to do this, and you're like, okay, yeah, all right. And so and so it was drummed into me, and and I think I'm kind of got good enough now to make stupid things but actually have the same importance. It's just it's just hidden, and it's more subliminal, and it's more, rather than, laughter is, the biggest healer, obviously, but inside that laughter is a lot of information that can actually educate and break down barriers and walls and all that sort of stuff. So I think I've got to a point now where I can make things that are, they look like they're designed for dickheads, you know what I mean? The audience will just be dickheads, but actually deep down inside they're really, really, really important and have massive foundations in all sorts of Indigenous issues. And that's kind of, I think I've made enough films to be able to take this other version of educating storytelling, but without people knowing better, I think is what I'm saying. I don't know, does that make sense?
It is, it does make sense, and I think what you're talking about is you're bringing an Indigenous sensibility, which is your own sensibility, to the stories and what you're bringing to everybody else in capturing those images. Because your films have, when I watch them, I think, I can see Warwick seeing that. That's what I feel like I'm looking at, the world through your eyes when I watch your films.
I think another thing is I make films, another thing, I make films for myself. I make films I want to watch, because a lot of the films that I want to watch are not on in cinemas, Yeah. And if I do that, at least I've got one audience member myself. but it seems to work, you know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people are, not jaded with cinema at the moment, but there's dietary requirements, you know what I mean? You can have popcorn and you can have cheeseburgers, but sometimes you just need a little bit of kangaroo, you know what I mean? To heal you, like being back on country in a strange way. Yeah.
Well, how do you say that you're bringing your view to a fictionalised story that's really got a lot more messages in it. What are we ready for now in Australia? Well, let's say Indigenous Australians are the 3% of the population.
Yeah.
What do the 97% of Australians need to hear from us now as Indigenous people?
I don't know.
They've changed a lot.
Are we as Indigenous storytellers still trying to tell stories to each other?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Or I think the truth comes from that. We're still healing. We're still healing country, and we're still using those opportunities to heal. And I think that the day you try and make an Indigenous story for non-Indigenous people, and that's your key core geometry or tent pole or whatever, it's a day you're really going to probably get yourself in a lot of trouble. You know what I mean? It's the day you've... I can be probably proved really wrong really quickly, but it's the day that just the spirit of storytelling is gone wrong. You know what I mean? It's sort of, if I make films for myself as an Aboriginal person, and I make it true to what I want to see, I think that's how you connect to people, because of the truth, not because of I want to do things for a different culture, or you know what I mean? I don't know. You do it for yourself. You do it for yourself, and you do it for your own people. And I think that's why modern Indigenous films are being so successful, because they have that spirit and truth. Yeah.
So given that that's the way your target audiences are, or you mob your community yourself, what is your creative process? What do you do? Like, where did the ideas come from? You can use some of your example films, your Green Bush, I think that's a fairly obvious one, but your Sweet Country, We Don't Need a Map.
I didn't write Sweet Country. My brother boy, David Tranter, the sound recordist I've worked with for the last 30 years, actually wrote that.
But you directed it?
Yeah, I directed it for him, but it still had his heart. It was his story for his people.
That's interesting.
You know, he's Aliwara, which is the tribe next to us, and he wrote that for his people. You know what I mean?
That's interesting, because I didn't think you had. I felt like it was a bit different to some of your other films, like We Don't Need a Map. They're much more gritty, they're much more hard-hitting.
Yeah. Well, actually, Stephen McGregor wrote it for David Tranter, because David's so awesome. He rocked up with like 4 drawings. This is the film, bro. You went, oh, so awesome. Sorry, bro, we can't get $4 million with 4 drawings. Well, you could if it was a very famous artist, but no. So we got Stephen McGregor with him, and they did an amazing job. That film's so awesome. Not because I directed it, because they wrote it and he drew it. I've got about 10 films in my brain. I hate writing. I actually can't. I spell phonetically upside down, inside out. And there's occasionally a couple of symbols, because that's quicker than spelling, than Googling something. I write with a pen and paper, but I've got 10 ideas in the back of my head right now, and 9 of them are shit. They're terrible ideas, but there's something important that keeps it not being erased. Something else that's keeping it in my head, and because I hate writing and it's such a painful process, I have to have literally the whole film finished in my head, beginning, middle and end, characters, multiple characters, all that sort of stuff, landscape, all of that in the back of my head, and then I'll just go down to the news agency, buy 3 pens, 2 blank books with the school books, and then go, scene 1, and with the pen just go, bleh. And then within 2 weeks I've written a script, a full film, and because I've got the end and all that sort of stuff. Because the quicker I do that, the less I don't want to fucking stab myself, and because it is ridiculously painful, and everything's spelt phonetically. No one can read it. It's got you can see when I'm excited about something. It just turns into just this, like a heartbeat, like writing, but it's just things going up and down, up and down, up and down. You know what I mean? And ever suffering people, good friends, I hand it over to them and say, you type this up for me. Because I'm one of those people with a computer, I'm going, where's A? Fuck, it's here somewhere, I'm sure. Oh, there it is. And where's N? Fucking N. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to write and, you know what I mean? It's like... So it's kind of so painful. So the quicker, and it's almost like getting a needle, you know what I mean? It's just get it over and done with, and it hurts just for that little split second, but not the whole time it's in your arm, you know what I mean? That's what it's about. And so I'll put up writing a script for years, just because that 2 weeks is just going to be so painful. But after that you know what I mean? After you're finished and it's handed over, and then suddenly you've got this script, it's like, that wasn't that hard, you wanker, you know what I mean? You could have done that. You could have done that 2 years ago. You've had that in the back of your head for so long. But the other part of that is too that you have different scripts. I have a script I could make probably for about $100,000. I've got a script that will cost about $4 million, and I've got a script that costs $100 million. You know what I mean? It's about opportunity. They're there. They're written. They're printed out. They're sitting there in my bag, and they're just. Then it becomes opportunistic, because you don't know when the money's going to come and how quickly it's going to come, or when you're hot right now in a strange way. So you always have to have multiple things that you can go to. Like, you know, if you win an award, whew, it's this next one. This one's $6 million, not 100,000. You know what I mean? And then suddenly you're meeting with Paramount or MGM or Sony or Netflix or whoever, and hey, it's a $100 million script. You know, that kind of thing. So it's like, it's all opportunistic in a way, but it's taken like, you know, the last 25 years of writing these things to have a place where you've actually got lots of different scripts and that you can sort of play with in a way.
And they're filed in the back of your mind.
These ones. No, there's another 10.
Written.
There's another 10 in my head.
Yeah, but these are the ones that are actually written.
Yeah, written
and ready to roll.
Yeah, ready to roll. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
right.
Absolutely.
So how many's out there in paper?
About 4.
4.
4. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and you know, and 2 of them I'm really happy with. I'd hand over to any executive right now, and 2 of them were shit. You know what I mean? They do need work. You know what I mean? There is problems, massive problems with them. You know, the third drafts and they're still shit. It's like, maybe it's like an old horse. You take it out the back and shoot it and turn it into, you know, charcuterie or whatever. You know what I mean? That's
Or maybe get a good trainer in and
at
help you
least
fix
eat
it
it.
up.
Yeah, if you're going to go through that much pain, at least you can cook it up and eat it.
Well, that sounds really like a very intense process. And what sort of conditions?
It's
you know,
not. It's
make
not
you
intense.
be
It's
most
incredibly
creative?
lazy. Trying not to do as much work as possible.
It's
But
just
it
like-
takes. You know, you got 25 years of writing all these scripts, so they're there. But you know, it's sort of like, you know, the film that Rachel and Dina and I are doing with Brendan. You know, we've got 5 weeks more pre-production. We've got a 15-week shoot. It's 8 hours long, and it's like, wow, where did that come from? That's, you know, we've been working on this for 10 years. 10 years. We have this script has been going 3 steps up, 1 step back, 2 steps up, 1 step back. You know what I mean? This is 10-year process. So. But that's why I've got so many projects happening, because they're 5, 10-year projects, and they take so much work. And you fall out of love with them, and you just want to set them on fire, and you're walking away, and you're going to go, you know, go back to country and heal yourself, and then you go, no, I'll hang around a little bit more. Let's keep the script running. I'll do another draft, or I'll, you know, change the name at least if you hate it that much. You know what I mean? That's a start. And it's a brand new script. Look, it's got a different name on the front.
Even with your film Samson and Delilah, with that creative process, was that a long period of time? So, you know, we talk about Warwick Thornton being an overnight success.
Yeah,
But it's
overnight.
not. Yeah, there's a lot of hard work behind it.
Overnight, he went to the bar and it was overnight success. He just had a great time. No, you know, well, before Samson and Delilah, I shot about 30 shorts for other people. I'd shot 2, 3 features as a cinematographer. You know, my shorts had won lots of awards. You know, Berlin won Best Film at Berlin and all that kind of blah, 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 blah crap. Yeah, but so it's all hard work, you know what I mean? And it takes a long time. And there's Samson and Delilah. I'm going to do a film next year, a big film, that I wrote before writing Samson and Delilah. And it's just been sitting there. And nobody understands it. No one understands me. You know what I mean? And then you just got to grow up and say, well, how the fuck can I make it that everyone can understand this? And then you just, you know, then you change it. But I wrote that before Samson and Delilah. Samson and Delilah was one of those, we can make this for
Really quick.
$1 million, you know. And I was taking this other script around to all the what do you call it, the funding bodies, state and federal, and they're all loving that, you know what I mean, but just not understanding it properly. But that was my problem, because I expected people to understand shit that I know, you know what I mean? And so like you just got to open your world and your storytelling up to to give. You know, there's sometimes, you know, if you get too Indigenous and you make it too for yourself, it's kind of, well, no one will ever understand it. So there is that balance. I'd say, gee, I've already proved myself wrong about what I was saying about, I make films for myself. I'm a complete walking contradiction, by the way. But, you know, there is a balance and that sort of stuff. And then suddenly, it's sort of like, I think it was Screen Australia, they accidentally had $1 million left in the, you know, and then 3 weeks before the financial year ended, and they had to hand it back to some shit government, you know what I mean? And it was kind of like, fuck, what are we going to do with this? I heard Warwick's got a script. And it's not that one we don't understand. and you know, and because Samson and Delilah is a very personal script, and I was scared of that script, you know what I mean? Fuck, how the hell am I going to make that? It's really dark and fucked up, but the balance, you know, the arc of the, you know, 90% of the, I think the world would have, if that thing was on a streaming service, I reckon 90% of the audience would have flicked within the first 15 minutes of it. You know what I mean? It takes a very brave human being to hang in through that film story, you know. But luckily it went to cinemas, and you know that thing about, see, with streaming services, it's like, I do it, I'm terrible, fuck off, you know, the attention span of a fucking 12-year-old, you know, and it's like, I'm just going, you know, I last about 5 minutes on, you know, the opening sequence of so many films, and I'm really bad for it, and I should slap myself because, you know, I don't want other people to do this to me. But I reckon if Samson Delilah went straight to a streaming service, no one would have watched it. But because of that really beautiful thing that happens with cinema, where you actually stand there and you have this $20 note in your hand, and you go up and down all those movies, and you make a really concerned choice, and it's a financial choice just as much. You know, who is going to have this $20 and 2 hours of my time? Who has the right to have that? And that's the sad thing about safety, and you know, like that's why people go to popcorn, because they just want a cheeseburger and spend $20 on a cheeseburger rather than $20 on something that you don't know what its taste is going to be like. You know, it's too much of a fear of the adventure. So you just go, I'll just go to McDonald's, you know what I mean, and spend my $20. So that's how cinema works in a strange way. But when people did choose Samson and Delilah with their $20, they had invested in the story, and they'd invested their lives into these kids' lives, and that's why I think it worked, because it came out in cinema, not a streaming service, because people had invested in these two children, not only with their time, but their money, and that's like, we want to look after these children when we watch this movie. So there's a really weird dynamic that's happening with cinema that we've lost with streaming, because streaming's like, I've got no investment. This is costing me, I've actually pirated this fucking channel, so I don't even have to pay for any of this. I'm just going to flick around like a fucking, you know? So it's difficult, and and that's the hard thing about streaming at the moment. But Samson Delilah worked that way because it went straight to cinemas, and everyone invested in these two children with their money and their time. I really love that.
And there is a different pace of life in it, as is in The Beach, and that's a series that was released during COVID.
Yeah, we shot that. We shot that way before even, you know, the first, you know, the first person got sick in China. You know, we'd finished that film before all of that. So it actually, in a really sad, fucked up way, it kind of was perfect timing.
It was. Did you think about it being not in, well, it was obviously it's a series. What led you to make The Beach? Because I think you'd made We Don't Need a Map before that.
Just ogre under the bridge, talking to chickens and cooking. It's a bit of a wanker, that bloke, eh?
It's very personal, yeah.
Yeah,
why
the hell would you want to stand in front of the camera? You know what I mean? I love actors, but they are a very weird piece of the universe, you know what I mean? It's like, they looked in the mirror and they went, I want to stand in front of the camera, not behind the camera. And, you know, they would have had to make that choice once, you know? And it's like, they did make that choice. So they're from some part of the universe that we're just not sure. You know what I mean? And they're amazing and they're fantastic, and they get your story across. They transition that script, from that script to the screen. There's an actor who does that, so they're incredibly beautiful. But who the fuck wants to stand in front of a camera and do that? It's a weird beast. Anyway, I decided to do it like a complete dickhead, you know? And there was I don't know, there must have been some ego stuff happening, you know what I mean? Some big ego shit happening for me to make that decision. I wasn't forced into it. I drove that whole thing myself, you know, with Michelle Parker, the producer, and Tanith, my niece, who's becoming an amazing producer. And my son shot it. I think that was my safety blanket, was that my son was going to shoot it. So I kind of felt like I had someone who owes me a lot. That I can sort of push around a bit, maybe. And guess what? Day one, he starts using in my face a 23mm lens, and for me that is the worst lens to shoot any face on. It's too wide. You know what I mean? You get all the bumps, the proportions of the face. Just 80mm is a portraiture lens. 27mm lens is something you shoot fucking geckos with, you know what I mean? Or if you want people to look like geckos. So he's using this lens and I'm like, what the fuck, son? Get that there's an 80mm, they put it on. He's like, Dad, right, you asked me to shoot this, didn't you? I'm like, yeah. Well, shut the fuck up, I'm shooting it. So that was it. So I lost my comfort blanket on day one of the beach.
But it was a healing journey. Wasn't
Yeah, it was a healing journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a sobering journey. I just needed to get off the piss. Really was, and best way to do that is get NITV and Screen Australia to pay for it. Seriously,
It was your
what I
rehab.
mean? Rehab, yeah. These guys can pay for that, can't you? And we'll make a movie out of it. I don't know what it's going to be like. My son's shooting it, so I'll be safe. Not.
And you were working the whole time too, really, weren't you?
Yeah.
Making the film. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and hunting and gathering and lying.
Do you want to tell us how to, got to that point? You wanted to go into your own self lockdown, really?
I love to cook. I cook for all my crews. Whenever I do a movie, I make sure I get a house or a unit with a kitchen. I can't do hotel rooms, the sort of fish tank, can't even open the window hotel rooms, they just freak me out. And I smoke, so, generally there's a fire brigade parked out the front of the hotel because of, the alarms have gone off. No, they don't. I've learnt my lesson after paying those bills so many times. So I love to cook, and I do a lot of cooking, and cooking for me is a great form of healing. And I learnt that, it was actually a great cinematographer, John Witteron, who I did a lot of camera assisting for back in the mid-80s. And I asked him, he was a very good documentary cinematographer, but actually he was so cool because he shot like All the Mental Is Anything and Hoodoo Gurus film clips, in the 80s. So it's like, oh, he's my fucking hero, you know what I mean? And I said to him, what would make a good, how could I become a better cinematographer? And he goes, well, what, to make film clips or to become, or documentary? And I wanted to say film clips, but that would have went into sort of, well, you should have a good supply of cocaine and a good supply of beer because you're around these bands permanently. And that wasn't the answer. And I said, documentary, and he said, he thought about it, and he said, learn to cook. You should learn to cook. Because all the documentaries I was doing with him, it was basically four people in swags on the outskirts of a community, filming in that community. And so every night we'd cook. And he was an amazing cook. And food in that situation when you're camping and how you know what I mean? You can just open a tin of bully beef and a tin of baked beans, but that's not family. And that's sort of, so we'd have these amazing cook-ups every night after we'd finished shooting with the community and with him. And it's like, yeah, learn to cook. Because cooking creates family. People don't give a shit if you can do 3 great shots. They'll never talk about that. They'll talk about, fucking, what about that food you cooked that night over the coals? That was amazing. That's how you get more jobs, is learning to cook rather than, And then I watch a lot of SBS Food, the Food Channel, and before that it was the Fox Food channels and that sort of stuff. and I just got so ridiculously pissed off with this really numbing and dumbing down of food, you know, and this sort of insulting, I'm better than you, I'm more important because I have knowledge about cooking that you don't, and this is garlic, you should use it well. Like, for fuck's sake, you know what I mean? Or, you know, and really bad food, you know, like a lot of those cooking shows are terrible, really terrible. And those really bad ones where some bloke goes to another country and then cooks in front of all the fucking greatest cooks, and you know what I mean? Because they know everything, you know what I mean? And there is some, you know, some street, you know, hawker street in Thailand, and they're doing pad thai, you know what I mean? It's like, you're fucking insulting these people, you know what I mean? And so I had this bad idea that I wanted to stand in front of the camera and I wanted to cook. Like a complete dickhead. You know, it's like, and in a strange way, it kind of worked. You know what I mean? Because less is, you know what I mean? It sort of, it worked because that film, that whole series was literally a 2-page outline. That's how it came. And it kind of ended with, I kind of don't know what I'm doing, but it's going to be great. And that's how we got the money, which was, you know, incredibly empowering that people, you know, there are people out there who do believe and can believe on a 4-page outline because they are believers, you know what I mean? And they're shit scared too that you could just go and blow $800,000 and it's a pile of crap, but they believe. So they're putting their jobs on the line as well with this belief. And it's just, there's a great, then you realise there's still this great humanity and there's still this great storytelling in the Screen Australias and the NITVs and the SBSs and the ABCs, and, you know, they still do believe and you still can get stuff, you know, they still trust, which I find really empowering. But it helps if you've won shitloads of awards around the world, you know what I mean? But
Look, I've loved watching The Beach, especially the food you cook, because a lot of it's very Asian influenced.
Yeah.
I saw your bloodshun trying to work out everything that you're putting in all your different dishes. And,
yeah.
And the way you presented them was amazing as well. The lobster.
Yeah, and
that
it's,
you've
you know,
cooked.
personal journey.
I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but it makes your mouth water, isn't it?
And really
Yeah.
slow. I just wanted to slow it all down. You know what I mean? You know, not in that sort of like, you know, the migration of the reindeer kind of slow down, but borderline there. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, you know, I don't tell you anything about this food we're cooking, but you know what fucking garlic is, don't you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we saw that.
You know, so it's kind of trying to make something where there's more questions than answers, and having no fear that you don't know what's happening, because I actually don't know what's happening as the person in front of the camera. So I kind of like that journey together in that way. I don't know what's happening, and then if I talk to you, you know, in your lounge room, do you know what's happening? And you go, no. And I go, yeah, cool, so we're all on the same page, you know what I mean? So that's kind of, for me, that's fun storytelling where we don't know what's happening. We're so pressured into, the audience might not know what's happening right now, so we have to explain it right now, because they're not allowed to not know, you know, because it's sort of this what's the fucking word, disempowering or something to the audience. They have to know, they have to be 2 steps ahead of you and all that. No, let's all be lost and have no idea what's happening together. And then at the end we'll all go, oh, that's what we were doing. And then we all agree at the same time.
So there were no
just make sure at the end that we all know what happened. Because we all knew what happened, because we didn't know what was happening, but we all went through it together, so kind of we knew what happened. So, you know, it makes sense in a weird way.
So there were no retakes on any of those shoots, of course. It was more just
No,
live.
no, you know, there's a lot of sticks and cocky shit and a lot of smoke and mirrors in that. You know what I mean? Obviously, anybody who's seen it, I kill a chicken. Well, I didn't kill a chicken. I didn't want to kill any. No chickens were killed on that. You know what I mean? And the 3 chickens from that they're in retirement at Lombardina. They're still living there and they still lay eggs. And the kids, they're at the school. You know, they were gifted to the school with the chicken coops and all that sort of stuff. So They're happy.
That's good because that eagle didn't get that chicken.
No, that eagle didn't get that chicken. That was all bullshit.
I didn't see any feathers there, to be
That was as
honest.
close as I could get to Spielberg. I could ever get to Spielberg. It's like,
There are no feathers on the ground anyhow.
No.
That's good to hear. Look, we should move along because I realise the time's flying already, and we wanted to talk about Firebite a bit more because that's what you're here in South Australia for.
Yeah, no.
Tell us more. How did that idea?
South Australia's believing in us, which is fantastic. Another believer. You know, we could completely make a pile of shit, but they believe in us that we're going to make something good, so we better stand up and stay sober a little bit more and, you know, get it done properly.
Right. Did you want to tell us a little bit more about Firebite?
Nah. I don't know. I'm fearful. Rachel probably throw a fucking rocket. Oh, the idea. Right. Well,
it's an interesting one.
I've been wandering around. I've been bullshitting to a lot of people for a lot, you know, for about 15 years ago about I'm going to make a vampire series. And it took a good friend of mine when I said I want to make a vampire series. Can you help me? Which was Brendan Fletcher, that it actually really started, because I'd just been lying that I was really going to make a vampire series. But it all came from finding out that on the First Fleet they brought 11 vials of smallpox, and this is a true story. There was 11 vials of smallpox on the First Fleet. Now, why the fuck do you bring smallpox? Hey, it was like, oh, you know, I'm sure there's some historian on Sky News who can tell you that they brought it for fucking some other stupid fucking reason. Sorry, I'm going to swear a lot now because I'm getting, you know what I mean? But why do you bring smallpox to a brand new land where you know that these people obviously, their health systems, their, what do you call it, what's that thing we just
Immune
had?
systems?
Immune systems have never recognised it. You know what I mean? Of course they brought it to wipe us out. Boom, boom. Guess what happened? First, 2 months into the First Fleet, you know, rocking up, and they had the 45 million gallons of rum and 3 chickens and 2 cows and 11 smiles of smallpox. Some mysterious outbreak of a disease happened through the community, and it was obviously smallpox, and 80% of that community was wiped out, you know, for this mysterious disease. Anyway, I can make a feature film about that, but it's kind of like Samson's Ladder. I think it'd probably flick over. You know what I mean? It's a slow, painful, stoic, important story. Now, if I change those 4 vials of smallpox into, 11 vials of smallpox into 11 vampires, and the British, with the First Fleet, bring vampires, and they set them loose the night before to run amok in our communities. By the way, we have really pure blood, because we haven't been living in Europe and all those kind of crazy places, so we have very, very rich, strong blood. They're still trying to steal it, aren't they? Those pharmaceutical companies are still trying to take litres out of us to see what's really in it. Anyway, so now we're rocking and rolling. You know what I mean? We got 11 vampires who were released, and for the last 200 years we've been fighting these bloody vampires in this secret war. So that's where Firebite started. And so it's got the foundations. It's about colonisation, all that sort of stuff. But now we're with AMC. These people make The Walking Dead and, you know, all these mega shows. They're really excited. They think it's, you know, it's like, fuck, you're just about to rewrite the whole vampire genre, you know. And the British using vampires as chemical warfare or as a weapon against Indigenous people. This is not just a story of Australia. This is North America. This is Hong Kong. This is India. The empire went right through everybody, ran an absolute muck. And we're just saying that every time they rocked up anywhere, they had a whole lot of vampires, so they let loose on the Indigenous community before they, and start that divide and conquer kind of stuff. Let the vampires take them on. The blackfellas have to fight the vampires. They'll kill each other. We can just walk in and raise the flag in a couple of months easily. You know what I mean? Which is what kind of did, but they used tribes against each other. They didn't use vampires and a tribe. They gave one tribe guns. They gave the other tribe, no guns, and then they just let the 2 tribes kill themselves through interwars, so that they could just move in and take over. There's a lot of beautiful books written about that, sadly. But so anyway, now we've got rock and roll. So it's vampires, and I have much more access to a wider. And I'm doing this for myself. This is a movie I want. This is an 8-hour TV series I want to watch. So I've still got my strength. I've still got what I want to do about it, and I'm making something that's very naughty. It's quite crazy. It's fiction. It's all smoke and mirrors and bullshit. So it's not really real. You know what I mean? And I'm in a really good place to make it in a way because I've made enough, I've directed enough and written enough now to be an adult in this industry. And I think I know a bit about how to tell a story. So I'm in a really good place. So that's where we are. We've got 5 more weeks of pre-production, and then we get a lot of grey hairs over the next 15 weeks, and we all cry and hug at the end. It's going to be incredibly hard. It's going to be incredibly hard. Yeah.
Sounds intriguing, sounds brilliant, but we're running out a lot of time.
Yeah.
Thank you for talking to me. But
And
I'm going to let you.
and South Australia, they've just been unbelievably awesome. They're believers. They're looking after us incredibly well. Because there's a lot of It's set in Cooper Pedy, so vampires are all living underground, pretending to be miners, and so they sleep all day underground, and then they all go to the pub at night. So it's like Cooper Pedy's the perfect place to hide if you're a fucking vampire. You know what I mean? So, and that's the other side of it. So, up and down with Cooper Pedy studio here, Cooper Pedy studio. It's going to be so much fun. I love Adelaide.
Well, I've had enough questions. We wanted to give the audience some time to ask some questions too.
Hi, Warwick and Nancy.
Hiya.
What can we expect you to be doing in 10 years' time? Because it sounds to me like what you've explained is you've mastered your craft, you're doing some really creative stuff now.
Yeah.
Where to in 10 years?
No, the honesty is I do this every year, and it's not a 10-year process, it's about a 5-year process, and I keep telling myself I'll go to rehab one day. Yeah. There's some big projects with some really big Australian stars who've, in a really beautiful way have come to me and said, we should make a movie before we all die. You know what I mean? And that's kind of, so there's lots of crazy big ideas out there. What we don't want to get into, poor Rachel Gurr, is 10 years from now I'm still making this one vampire series, and we've hashed it out 1,000 times, and it's got so fucking boring. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, another vampire. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the last thing we want, is to be 10 years, 10 series down the track, and it's just like, fucking kill me now. Yeah.
Hi Warwick, Dan Monceau. I'm very pleased to hear you're making a vampire series.
Everybody's got a vampire series, haven't they?
No,
Which is
great.
good.
And it's not going to be sort of teenage porn stuff.
No. There's no eyeliner or pouting, virgins. Yeah, no. They're ugly. They're racist. They smell just as bad as they look. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So I'm wondering, obviously you put a lot of punk rock ethos into some of your films. We were just watching your doco about the Southern Cross last night. My wife and I
awesome.
loved it.
Thank you.
What are you thinking for the sound, or the soundscape of your? If you can talk about it.
Shut up. Yeah.
Have I gone too fast?
We basically, because of COVID, and because of our love of Aussie pub rock, in a way, we've kind of made a deal that all the music has to be Australian, because so many Australian bands haven't toured for the last 2 years. So if there's a small band, that we love their music, rather than giving it to some, multinational company for 30 seconds of some rock star, overseas, it's like, we'll just make it Australian, you know what I mean? So, can I announce who's going to do the composing?
No, but you can talk about the genre of music.
Oh, it's all punk. The whole thing's punk. It's bad attitudes. It's all Australian. It's very naughty, and it's it's sort of. I love punk because it's just lazy. Like, oh, do I have to get off the lounge and sing for you bastards? I like that kind of. And there's half of these bands just know three. Fucking what's that shit called? Yeah, power. You know what I mean? It's sort of like I remember learning them when I was young, and then trying to spend the rest of my life trying to erase those chords from my from my fingers or my brain, you know what I mean? Because it's just like, you can play any song, you know, you can, the same chords as Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond are the same as, you know, I Hope the Time of Your Life by Green Day. You know what I mean? It's just so painful. But they're just great when you just got shit to say and you're too lazy to learn about it, which is kind of a great thing about punk, you know what I mean? So I like that sort of attitude. So there's amazing composers from an incredibly amazing band, a Melbourne band, incredibly, you know, some of the stuff that we've already talked to procuring, because I try not to ever use, well, I've learnt my lesson with temp music, where you use someone else, some band's music, and then you insult a composer or another band. Can you make something that sounds like that? That's just so insulting creatively. So I've learnt never to use, so we try to get all the music before we even start editing. So the editors only use music that we know that we can use and we love. But you know, we're talking about bands that have they have a film clip on YouTube and they have like 28 views. You know what I mean? That's all they've got. The song's awesome. You know what I mean? It's not their fault that that, you know, I don't know. The record, yeah, you know what I mean. So, but I get excited if someone has 28 views. I run away from them if they've got 30,000. You know what I mean? That's more empowering to me, and I think that person with 28 views should have my money, not the person with, or a person with 5 million views. It's like, no, I'm going to give you my money. I'm going to give it to 28. That person clicks, whatever. You know, so we're really excited about it, and we've talked a lot to AMC about it, and just going, look, you really need to sign off on this, because this is just going to be hardcore rock and roll madness and energy and angst and, you know, sort of beer-soaked carpet kind of music, you know, and that's kind of, and they just love it. I think it's quite refreshing that the path we're taking. Yes, it's all going to be, you know, crazy bands with 28 views and who have got incredibly beautiful songs.
I think it's a good way to wake up your audience as well, if you just to give them a shot of like
Yeah.
rock every now and again.
Yeah, just shake, you know what I mean? Fucking wake up. Yeah, so set this, you know, grab your cigarette and fucking set the fire alarm off, you know what I mean? That's how you wake up a lot of people.
Hi, Warwick. It's been really interesting listening to you.
Thank you.
I was wondering, you mentioned your son filming you. I was just wondering if he's been involved in any of your other work, and if you've had family appearing in some of your films.
Yeah, On Sweet Country was kind of the first time we'd ever worked together, and he did second unit DOPing and directing. And I basically got him a job because he owed me money. No, I've been one of those great dads where I just ring him and say, "Got any money?" Just to annoy the shit out of him. You know what I mean? I've got money. I like the idea that he can start coughing. I never take money off him, but I just like the idea of just annoying him that I'm just so useless with money that he has to pay for me now. But yeah, I have worked with him. He's awesome. It's like Dylan, like Marsha. So everybody loves Dylan, fucking, you know, whatever, you know. So what's happening now is he's stealing my jobs, and he's stealing my money, and he's stealing my awards. So, you know, how annoying is that? But the interesting thing about that kid was I didn't know what he was wanting to do with his life until he was doing it. And he wanted to make movies. And because his name's Dylan River, well, that's his middle name's River, but he's Dylan River Glenn McDonald. So he took his mother's name and my name out of the equation, because his mother's a very good, amazing producer as well. So he got rid of his lineage, you know, his provenance, and so he'd do it all himself. And he decided he'll never go to fucking film school because his mum and dad did that, you know what I mean? And then he just started making movies himself, and he Googled how to use one of those editing things, I don't even know what they're called anymore, you know, cameras and all that sort of stuff. He just Googled it all and started making things. And then suddenly it's like, oh, your son's up for an actor award, and your son's up for that. Like, where the fuck did that come from? You know, which was kind of really beautiful. He did it himself. But you know, he thinks he knows everything, and he knows fuck all. He's got another 30 years before he can even think he knows half of the shit that I know. from there. But it's wonderful working with him. And that's the truth of it. You know what I mean? That, like, if someone asks me to shoot something, they got to believe in me. And then suddenly, you know, I asked him to shoot something, and I tried to go, you can't use that camera, and he's like, fuck off. You asked me to do this, so I actually had to believe in him, and I had to, you know what I mean? And I did. And then I seen myself looking like a gecko on the series, but I just shut up, you know what I mean? Because that's trust and that's important, you know what I mean? It's like you're fighting with your son on set. That's embarrassing. That'd be ridiculous, you know what I mean? I mean, you know. But yeah, he's incredibly special and amazing, and he's just got this work ethic that I wish I had. You know what I mean? It's just, I'm like, oh, fucking, you know, can we start at lunchtime and finish at 4? You know what I mean? And he's like up at dawn and he works till 8 at night every day, loves it, so fantastic. You know what I mean? It's like, I hate your work ethic, you bastard.
Well, it sounds like we're going to hear a lot more from Dylan as well, but why don't we just now...
Well, it's just been announced that he's directing Mystery Road 3, the whole series, by himself.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so rock and roll, you know what I mean? So he's, you know, I did the second, Rachel Perkins did the first series, Wayne Blair and I did the second series, and now, obviously, Dylan's doing the third series by himself, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, so he's right, he'll be right.
Continuing the family tradition.
Yeah, stealing my awards and my money and my jobs.
Well, we have to wrap up now. It's really been great hearing from you, Warwick, and sharing your stories with us. Happy NAIDOC Week to everybody.
Yeah, rock on.
I want to ask you to thank
And
Warwick.
you're allowed to ask questions outside of NAIDOC Week as well,
And
by the way.
I don't know if you know, but this is the first conversation he's had since COVID hit, so since The Beach came out. So we've all been very privileged today. Can you thank him greatly for us?